Give me a second to get logged in here, get going, and get set up and ready to answer some comments, and we'll get going here. If this is your first time here, then welcome to the weekly live broadcast. Doesn't look like anybody's in here yet, so I guess I'm talking to nobody, but that's okay. We'll talk away for just a minute. People will get in here in just a minute. Hang on. This is always the weird part. I gotta see what I'm doing here. There we go. I should get set up beforehand. So anyway, okay, so let's do this again. This is your first time here. This is the weekly live broadcast. You guys that come here all the time, you already know how it works. But those of you guys that are new to the weekly live broadcast, this is just pretty much an Ask Me Anything session. Whatever you want to ask me, keep it family friendly is all I ask, because we do have different people, different ages, all kinds of things in here. So just keep it family friendly. We don't have to kick anybody out. Other than that, it's pretty much free game. Just ask whatever you want to ask. I do my best to get to all the comments that come through the chat. If you're watching this after it's aired live and you leave a comment on the video itself, then I usually get to those and answer those too, but sometimes it takes me a day or two to get around to that. So forgive me if I'm a little bit slow to respond to that sometimes. But other than that, let's get into it. We got Ethan here. Ethan and Stuff says hi. Hello, Ethan. Glad you could make it. Thanks for joining us. And we got about 8 people in here, but nobody's talking yet, so we'll give them just a minute to get going. Oh, somebody's already liked the live broadcast. I bet it was Ethan. Either way, thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Hopefully everybody's having a great week. Excuse me, while we're waiting for everybody to get logged in here, there's Josh. Hello, Josh, and Leo Wolf. Grab a drink here real quick. Let's see what's going on. Flu has hit our household. Actually, just my stepson. He's got the flu, influenza B. At least it's not A. That's what I'll say there. So he's out of school for the week. Can't go back till Monday, but that's okay. Everybody else so far is doing okay. So if I had to take him to urgent care yesterday. We sat there for about 3 hours. Oh my gosh, it took forever. And confirmed influenza B. Sat in a waiting room full of people coughing and hacking. So if I come down with something in the next couple of days and I'm a little bit slow to respond or don't have the videos up, you'll know why. That's why. But anyway, enough of that. Let's get into this. Ethan and Stuff says, I love your channel. Thank you so much, Ethan. I appreciate that. And Randy says, hi, can't believe I'm here. Well, why not? I believe you're here. Thanks for joining us. Peter, or is that Peter, I think it is? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name right. Says, hi, hello. Hello to you, Debbie. And Booyah Kashala. My goodness, that's hard to pronounce. Says, finally made it to my first live broadcast. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate that. And let's see, Ethan says, thanks for the videos. You're absolutely welcome. Hello to you, Lauren. I thought I already said, no, I didn't. Hello, Lauren. And Mark says, have a great live broadcast. Thanks, Mark. Hopefully we do. Sharon, good evening to you. Future Homesteader says, hello to all, and nice to be back. Good to have you back. Jill says, is it possible to over-fertilize with rabbit poop? I suppose it is possible. I mean, you'd have to add a whole lot of it, I think, to over-fertilize, but and there's no reason to really add that much. I mean, you don't need to go crazy with it. It does a pretty good job of fertilizing your soil. I don't know that there's a huge concern with that. You know, I've never tried to grow in straight rabbit manure. I don't know, but, you know, it is a cold manure, so it's not a hot manure, so I don't think it would do too much damage to your plants, but again, you don't want just nothing but manure in there. That's a little bit crazy. So yeah, I suppose it probably is possible to over-fertilize with it in the sense that you've just got too much in there. You may be drawing bugs and those kinds of things, but I don't know that it's a big issue, really. No, sounds good. Oh, somebody's asking about muffled sound. Hopefully it's coming through. I don't have an extra mic hooked up to this. I had a mic for a while, but I don't remember what happened to it. Anyway, don't have a mic hooked up to it. We're just shooting this through my phone, basically. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I think I speak loud enough, but you know, who knows? If not, let me know. Lil Wolf says, the hatching eggs I got have grown into some beautiful babies. That's fantastic. Glad to hear that. Willie McBurney from Scotland says, any tips on doing a dry hatch? Yeah. Oh, and Jill's telling me to take zinc to make sure I don't get sick. That's probably a good suggestion. I should do that. Anyway, Willie, yeah, for a dry hatch, and if you guys don't know what a dry hatch is, it's pretty much just means you're not adding any water. You know, I've done that several times. I think it probably depends a little bit on your environment, your humidity levels that you have in the air around you. If you live in a very arid area, and I don't know Scotland that well to know, I think, as far as I know, it's a fairly humid area, but I don't know that for sure. So if you live in a very arid area, very dry area, you probably don't want to do a complete dry hatch. It's a little too dry. What I found in myself, if I try to do, hatches in the wintertime, it takes a lot more water to keep the humidity levels up. Even when I do a dry hatch, you add some water in at lockdown. But I've had really good success with doing dry hatches in the summertime. But then again, our humidity levels are generally in the 70% range in the summertime. So I think that probably has a little bit of an impact on that. It's about the right humidity level just in the air, just in the ambient air. So you don't need to add a lot of water. You don't need to. In fact, I didn't add any water to the incubator until I go into lockdown, and then I add enough to bring it up to about 80%, 85%. So I would say if you're going to do a dry hatch, I would say, again, it depends a little bit on your air, your humidity levels in your air and all those kinds of things. But still, you want to bump up the humidity a little bit at lockdown, 75 to 85% at the most. You really don't want to go 85% or over. You want to keep it probably 75 to 80%, somewhere right around in there during lockdown for the best results. Hopefully that's kind of, other than that, there's not really a whole lot to it. It's just, don't put any water in until you go to lockdown. That's about it. You can candle your eggs at about 10 days or so. See how big the air sac looks. You should be able to see in the egg when you hold it up to the bright light, a flashlight or something like that. There'll be an air sac in there, and if it looks overly large, which would be, if it's more than like, a quarter of the egg, that's a lot actually. If it's more than, probably if it's close to a quarter of the egg or more, that means you probably need some water in there. Keep the humidity levels up a little bit higher. But I wouldn't stress about it too much. Hopefully that gives you some tips. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what else I can do, but that's about it. I've had good luck doing dry hatches, like I said, in the summertime and the wintertime. It doesn't work as well for me because it is awful dry here in the wintertime. All right. Hopefully I got that answered for you. All right. Let's see. Raymond says, I'm here just at 28 turkey eggs. Well, good luck with your hatch. Hopefully that goes well. Carl Boehm from Ohio, hello to you. Oh, I just scrolled and lost track. There we go. Then we're talking about the muffled sound. William Chapman says, hello, Chris from Alabama. Got a hatch going real good. We'll give you an update next week. Good. Hopefully things go well for you. And ES from Australia. I don't know if that's ES or S. Either way, good day to you too, and thanks for joining. I appreciate that. Kinjo says, what's the best quail cage to start with? The one you have, whatever you have. I got somebody asked me about the best, rabbit hutch too, and I'm like, oh goodness. You can do it so many different ways. I don't know that there is one that's really considered the best. Let me grab another drink here real quick. It's when you're talking about starting with a cage, here's the things that I would consider with quail anyway, is how big are you planning on going? It's probably better to build your cage big enough to handle, or build two cages, one or the other, to handle as big as you plan on going. But at the same time, you don't want to necessarily go overboard. It depends a little bit on your finances. Can you afford to build a smaller cage to get into it, save yourself some money to begin with, make sure that it's something you enjoy, that you like doing. Then if you want to expand, you could always sell that cage maybe and build yourself a bigger one if you need to expand, or build a second cage. I personally, my hutches are, let's see, I think they're 6 foot by 3 foot. That's 6 foot long by 3 foot wide. And those work out really, really well for me. I have 2 of them. And I have another small cage off to the side that I use occasionally, not very often, but if I just need to quarantine some birds or need somewhere to, store some birds temporarily or whatever, that's what that's for. But it has worked out well to have 2 hutches for me. Right now I've got meat makers in one, the Pharaohs in the other. But in the past, hey, there's Lars in with the super chat again at 200 Danish, I can't ever remember what kind of money that is, but 200 Danish something. Super chat. Thank you so much, Lars. I appreciate that. That's awful generous of you coming here all the time and just throw some money at me, and I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Where was I with the quail? Okay. The other thing I would say, I'm having a hard time staying focused, I guess, tonight. Sorry about that. So back to the perfect quail cage you're going to want to start with. I do recommend that you start with something with a wire bottom. That's going to be way less maintenance than having a solid floor. At the same time, do provide a spot in there for them that has like a sandbox or something like that, that they can get into and get off the wire if they want to. There's lots of different ways that you could do it. If you're looking at buying a commercial cage, the quail cages are a little harder to come by than rabbit hutches. You're probably going to have to look online somewhere. There are a couple of companies that do sell specific quail cages. Most of them are what they call battery style cages, which they're pretty small boxes. They're meant for breeder. Keep a couple of breeders in, so you would keep like three females and a male in one little cage. But if you're at all handy and you plan on building your own cage, you can do it a lot of different ways. I've done it with stacky quail cages that I built out of a PVC frame that held the cages up. Those were pretty simple and pretty straightforward, pretty easy. I do like my outdoor hutches the way I've got them set up now, though. They've worked out really, really well for me. So, I don't know that I can tell you the best cage to start with. Just a couple of things to consider. Again, give them plenty of room. You want to plan on at least 1 square foot per bird. So if you plan on having 30 or 40 birds, you're going to want to have 30 or 40 square feet of cage space, which would be like like a 10 by 3 or a 10 by 4 or two 5 by 2s. Well, no, that would be 20 square feet, wouldn't it? 5 by 3, that'd be about 30 square feet. If you had 2 cages 5 by 3, that would be 30 square feet. Make sure you give them a wind block, a way that they can get out of the wind. I guess that's about the best advice I can give on that. Hopefully that covers that one for you. Yep, slightly muffled sound, huh? Maybe I need to check my microphone on here. Hopefully it's not clogged up with like pocket lint and things like that. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. All right, where are we at here? Future Homesteader says he has an awesome DIY build for quail cages. Well, thank you so much. And I want to apologize. Oh, there's Resham. I missed one. Resham Pretium says hi. Hello to you. Glad you could make it. I need to apologize to you guys too, because some of you guys have asked for plans for my quail hutches. Lots of people have watched the the videos that I put out whenever I was building those hutches, and asked if I had plans with exact measurements and all that kind of stuff. And I don't. I just don't build things that way. I more or less just kind of think them out, plan out. Okay, I'm going to go 6 foot long. So I need 4 6-foot boards, 2x4s or whatever I plan on building the frame out of. I'm going to go 3 feet wide, so there's 2 more 6-foot boards that I need, and then I just kind of stick build it. I just kind of do it as I do, put it together as I go, and kind of figure it out that way. So I don't tend to build, based on plans. I didn't write up any plans for that. Hopefully you guys can follow the video and figure it out. It's not really that difficult, I don't think, to figure out, but that's the way my mind works, and I realize that not everybody's works that way, so I apologize that I didn't actually put out plans for that. Excuse me. Hey, there's a flightless theropod. Hello to you. And Marie Scott says, hi, Chris. My quail are on wire cages, but they're getting sores on their feet. What should I do? Okay, there could be a couple of reasons for that. If it's possible, you might look at the wire that you put in there. It may be rougher on one side than it is on the other, and if it's possible to take it off and flip it over to where it's a little bit smoother, you can look at like vinyl-coated hardware cloth and some of those kinds of things. It's going to be expensive, but all you need it for is the floor. You don't need to build your whole cage out of it. You can get away with the rest of the stuff with cheaper wire. Those are a couple of things that you can do. Usually they're going to toughen up pretty well. Sometimes they'll get a few sores on their feet, but they heal up just fine. Just keep an eye on them. Make sure you don't get infections in there, which would be bumblefoot basically. Other than that, there's not really much else that you need to do with it. Those are a couple of things that you can look into there. Again, give them some way to get off the wire if they need to. A sandbox or something like that, so they can get a break from it. They're not just on the wire all the time. That'll help out a little bit with that. I don't really have problems with mine getting. I mean, every once in a while I'll have one that has a sore on its foot or gets hurts its foot somehow or another, whether that's on the wire or whatever. But generally they heal up pretty quick. They get over it, and it's not an ongoing issue for me. So hopefully that helps a little bit with that, Marie. All right, Lauren says we have 6 rabbits due. One is usually friendly, is having pregnancy attitude. She bit me. Oh no. Yeah, that's funny how how rabbits can do that. They just change, their attitudes when they get pregnant. Mine's not really bad when she's pregnant, but once she has babies, she is. I mean, it's difficult to get in there and deal with things. She hasn't bit me yet, but boy, she's come really close. She's grabbed a glove out of my hand before, and some of those kinds of things. I've just been kind of careful, knowing that she's like that. When she doesn't have babies, though, if she doesn't have them in the cage with her, she's fine. Easy to handle. I mean, no problems. It's weird. All right. Booyakashala, my goodness, that's hard to say, says zinc, vitamin C, and echinacea. Well, thank you for the suggestion. I appreciate that. Hey, Max, you guys probably, you can see Max a little bit. There he is. He came in to see me. I think he wants to go out, but he's coming in to pester me. He's convinced that there's something out there to chase, but he doesn't want to stay out. It's cold, so he goes out and barks a little bit, and then he comes back in, and then 5 minutes later he wants back out. Anyway, Leo Wolf says, "Yeah, boo, that has saved me many times." The zinc, the vitamin C, and the echinacea. Okay, yeah, good. Good suggestions there. I need to do that probably. Of course, I don't know. Who knows? It'll probably work. Kurt says, "Hello tonight. How long does it take quail and rabbit poop to break down and make compost?" Boy, that depends on a lot of different things. It depends on, and I hate saying that. For everything, it seems like I say that. That depends. But it's not just a straightforward answer with that. There is a process. Whenever things break down like that, it is a combination of carbon and nitrogen that cause those things to break down. Quail manure, rabbit manure, both are higher in nitrogen. Quail manure much higher in nitrogen. And that basically breaks down the carbon in whatever carbon material that you put in your compost pile. If you take just rabbit manure and pile it up, it's going to take a very long time to break down. Same thing with quail manure. It takes a very long time to break down into compost because there's no carbon in there. It's just nitrogen, and you need the carbon for the nitrogen to break down. Basically, it's hard. I don't know that I can even explain it well, so I'm not even going to try. But you do need carbon and nitrogen both in order to get compost in the end. And you got to get the right mix, and the right mix is probably about half of each by volume. So if you've got the mix right, the carbon, the nitrogen mix right, that's only part of it. The other things that compost needs to form are moisture. It needs water. It doesn't want to be not like a bog, not like soggy, like water, saturated all the time, but it does need water. It needs to remain damp, moist. The other thing it needs is air. So if you just if you get your carbon right, you get your nitrogen right, you pile it all up, it's going to really kick off and start cooking really well, but then it'll slow down a little bit and it'll take a while. And it could take up to a year. If you just pile all that carbon and nitrogen together, let it set, it could take up to a year for it to compost. Now, if you pay a little bit of attention to it, turn it every once in a while, just flip it over, take the top, put it on the bottom, take the bottom, put it on the top, stir it up a little bit, and do that every couple of weeks. You could probably get it down to compost if you've got your carbon and nitrogen mixture just right, you can get it to compost in 4 weeks or so. Probably you could do it in 2 weeks if you really stay diligent, turn that compost every other day. But generally you're looking at a month and a half, something like that probably, with some attention being paid to it. So sorry, drying out tonight. So what else was I going to say with that? Something else. So you can kind of watch your compost. A couple of things that you can kind of check for is, whether it's hot or not. Just put your hand over the top, and you don't have to stick your hand down in it. Put your hand over the top, and you should be able to feel heat coming off of it. In the wintertime, if it's cold outside and you turn that, you should be able to see steam coming off that compost pile. If it's not hot, if it's not getting hot enough, that's a sign that you don't have enough nitrogen in there. If it's not, it could be a sign you don't have enough nitrogen in there, assuming you got carbon in there. Where was I going with that? If it starts to smell like a sewer, like gets real anaerobic, starts to smell like a sewer, you probably either got too much water, it's just too wet, or you've got not enough carbon. You need to add some more carbon and turn it, and that will probably take care of that. But that you can just kind of keep an eye on it, make sure it stays cooking. It should be steaming and hot. Sometimes it'll calm down. It's not hot anymore, and if you just turn it, just stir it, that'll get it going again, and it'll start cooking, and it'll get hot again. And compost will get pretty hot. 110, 115 degrees is, well, probably even 125 degrees is not uncommon at all. Hopefully that kind of answers that one for you. Hello to you outside in Georgia. Let's see, Raymond Philly says, I think they know the answer, but I'm only using quail for eating eggs. Can I get rid of the males? You absolutely can. You don't need males around. The hens will lay eggs regardless of whether they have males or not. It really has more to do with the amount of light that they get than anything else, and keeping them stress-free. Don't be moving them around a lot. Don't, keep the predators away, that kind of thing. They'll lay eggs, though. They don't need roosters around in order to lay eggs. Did we get, where are we at here? Okay, Boyd says, I started with my first 15 quail this week. Thank you for all your help. Awesome. Congratulations on the new birds, and thanks for watching the videos. Hopefully they are helpful. Let's see. Ken says, what percentage of calcium do quail need? I suspect my eggs are too thick. Lots of dead chicks inside the eggshells after a low hatch rate. Humidity in the incubator was 80%. Okay, so let's see. A couple of things I can say about that. Let me grab one more drink here. It's very dry here today. Talking too much, and hang on, guys. Give me 1 second here. Let me let the dog out. He's barking again. There you go. Go out there. Run them all off, Max. All right. Sorry about that. Didn't take too long, though. Okay, so calcium levels and a bad hatch rate. Okay, a couple of things I can say about that before we address the calcium, and that's a good thought. It could be that your eggshells are too thick. Most of the time, problems with incubation are going to be related to temperature, not humidity. It sounds like your humidity was right. 80% is good. So temperature is the other thing that I would check on. I always suggest get a couple of calibrated thermometers. Make sure you get 2 of them, so you know that it's, if the 2 thermometers you throw in there, or the one on the incubator, any 3 of those or any 2 of those read the same temperature, you can pretty much trust it. Again, make sure you calibrate them first, boiling water, ice water. Look up how to do that, and make sure they're accurate before you throw them in your incubator. And just test your incubator out. Make sure the temperature is correct. That's usually that's a pretty common problem, especially with the styrofoam, like Little Giant incubators, all those kinds of things. It's not uncommon for their thermostats to be just slightly out, and just a couple of degrees one way or the other can make a difference. Okay, so calcium though, it is possible that you give too much calcium to your birds, and therefore they get thick eggshells, and it does make it hard for the birds to hatch. Usually, what you'll see is the birds will pip, but they won't break the shell any more than that. They just can't. They can't get through it. So about 1.5%, 1.5 to 2%, somewhere right around in there, is about the right calcium level for your quail. Anything more than that, it can be too much. Anything much less than that, it can be too little. So if you are going to add calcium to your quail's feed, always add it as a separate container. Don't mix it in with the feed itself. Just add it on the side. Give them free choice. They'll pretty much self-regulate that. If it's mixed in with their feed, they don't self-regulate. They can easily get too much calcium in their diet. So hopefully that kind of answers that question for you. I would be surprised if your feed, especially if you're feeding like a game bird feed or something like that, I would be surprised if it has too much calcium in it. It's, they do a pretty good job usually of regulating that. If anything, they're usually a little bit on the low side with calcium. But that's something you can look at and see. So, all right, hopefully I got that question answered for you. All right, Booyah Kashala says I did 2 separate hatchings, one in November and one in December. My first hatch, all but 2 lived. Had 4 birds die in 2 days, all white. Not sure if it was genetic. When is the best time of the year to try to hatch? Well, again, I hate to say it again, but it depends. It depends a lot on your climate, what's going on there. I like to hatch mostly in the spring and the summer because it's just easier on me to, keep the birds warm when they're young. I can move them out to the outside hutches a lot earlier. In the summertime, when it doesn't get below about 75 degrees at night, I can usually move the birds out to the outside hutches when they're like 2.5 weeks old. In the wintertime, I've got to wait a little bit longer, 3 to 4 weeks, till they're fully feathered out, acclimate them to the cold a little bit better before I move them outside. So I like spring and summer. As far as why your birds died afterwards, you had 4 birds die in 2 days, all white. It could be a genetic issue. There are some birds that carry what they call a terminal gene, where they can just suddenly die for who knows what reason. But who knows? It could be any number of things. If they got in the water, you didn't have the temperature high enough for them. There's a whole lot of things that go into that. So it's really hard to know for sure. I wish I could tell you, specifically what to look at, but unfortunately, it's just too many variables there. All right, Brittany says, hey, Chris, I had our worst hatch ever this week. What has been your experience on shipped eggs versus eggs you produce yourself? Also, have you ordered eggs in the wintertime? Did the temperature affect them? Troubleshooting. Good questions, Brittany. Okay, so now I usually have pretty good results with shipped eggs. Maybe slightly lower than what I get with my own eggs, but not that much. I usually average probably somewhere around 80 to 85% with my own eggs, sometimes a little higher than that. And with shipped eggs, I'd say it's probably 75 to 80%, somewhere right around in there. I'm trying to think. I don't know that I've ever ordered eggs in the wintertime. It shouldn't be, unless it's like the middle of an ice storm and they're sitting outside on your porch for a day or two, like 12 hours of the day well below freezing. It's probably not a big issue to order them. I can't imagine that the weather would affect them too much. I mean, they're being stored in as long as they're handled correctly by the post office, which usually they're going to handle them pretty well. Let's see. What else can I say about that? What else? I think that pretty much covers that, doesn't it? Sorry you had a bad hatch. It very well could have been the weather that affected them. Keep trying. Hopefully the next one's going to be better. All right. Colleen says, why do some quail eggs bust in the incubator? Okay, if by bust you mean crack, or by bust you mean like actually explode. Explode is bad. In fact, cracking is bad too. It's most of the time it's caused by the same thing though. I mean, assuming you're not having a problem with like your egg turner or something that's malfunctioning and causing the eggs to bang around and get cracked that way. But more than likely, what you're talking about is the egg either explodes or like it cracks and you've got stuff kind of oozing out the side of it. Generally, that's because the embryo died for whatever reason. It developed to a certain stage and then it died for whatever reason, and it's how do you say this without grossing? It's decomposing basically. So when that happens, it's putting off some kind of gas, some kind of pressure in the egg. A lot of times that could cause the egg to crack or explode. So that's pretty bad. That's not good for your incubator, of course, or your eggs that you're incubating. It's a lot of bacteria that's being introduced. It's not good for your hatch. But I mean, as far as why that's happening, there could be any number of reasons why you've got, eggs that aren't developing fully, why the birds die inside the egg before they develop fully. Most of the time, it's going to be related to temperature. There may be hot spots in your incubator or cool spots in your incubator. Maybe your temperature is just not quite right, so it's not allowing all the birds to develop at the same rate. So again, it's something that you might want to check the temperature on your incubator with a couple of calibrated thermometers like I talked about a few minutes ago. All right, where are we at here? Willie says, thanks, Chris. It rains in Scotland pretty much all year round. Yeah, it was kind of my impression of Scotland, too. I don't know. I've never been there. Always wanted to visit. I've got, family. I mean, I'm primarily Irish by descent, but we do have some family in Scotland I've never met, don't know anything about them. I just know that if you trace our genealogy, there's still some family that lives in Scotland. So who knows, maybe someday I'll make it over there and visit you guys. But anyway, yeah, if it rains all year round, dry hatch is probably going to work out pretty well for you. All right, my kit video says, hi, I see some people injected eggs during incubation. What is that? I am from Ghana. I don't know what that is, injecting an egg during incubation. I'm not really sure. I'm sorry, I can't answer that one for you. All right, Bubba. Hey, Bubba's here. Says, hey, Chris, I hope you're doing well. I am. Thank you very much. You guys that don't know, Bubba's the one that won our free egg giveaway. Don't think you've actually placed your order yet. I was talking to Dawson from Hatch Poultry earlier. He hasn't seen an order come from you, just so you know. He's waiting on it. He's ready to go when you are. All right, Kathy says, hi, Chris, how are you this Thursday? When do you rebreed your does, or what's the earliest possible, I think is what that's supposed to say. Yeah, what's the earliest I can rebreed my does is what you're saying. Okay. It depends. I always say it depends. It depends a little bit on what time of year it is. In the wintertime, sometimes I will rebreed pretty intensely. I typically don't breed my rabbits during the summertime. I give them a break in the summer. The fall, the winter, I try to get several litters out of them. So like this last one, I did rebreed her pretty early. I don't like to rebreed them earlier than about 6 weeks after they've given birth. I usually wean my babies and separate them from the mom around 8 weeks. So if I breed her at 6 weeks old, hang on, what is that? I don't know what that was. Some kind of error popped up. I don't know what it was. But anyway, if I'm sorry, I got distracted by that. It was some kind of error popped up on my computer. I don't know what it was. I didn't get to read it. It caught me off guard. We're back though. So where was I talking about? Rebreeding. Okay, if I rebreed at 6 weeks, that gives me 2 weeks before I'm going to wean the babies off, and then she'll have about 2 weeks before she's given babies, where she's got time to relax, not having any babies in the cage with her, any of that kind of stuff. I really don't like to rebreed any more intensely than that, but you can do it. You can rebreed her at 4 weeks old, wean the babies off right at 8 weeks, and then she's having babies again right away. You can do that if you want to. To me, that's just a little bit too intensive. So again, I don't do it before 6 weeks. Hopefully that kind of answers that question for you. All right. Lodrell 100 says, hello, Chris. Hello from North Carolina. Hello to you. Thanks you made it. Or thank you for making it. Kathy, I already read that one. Randy says, we're finally doing great with our rabbits. All 4 of my rabbits have a litter right now. So far, we haven't lost too many. They're doing wonderful. Thanks for all the stuff that you've taught me. Well, awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Congratulations on all your rabbits. I'm glad to hear that they're doing very well, and glad to hear that the videos were helpful for you. And thank you for watching them. I appreciate that. Thomas says, did the guy who won the quail eggs claim them? Oh, funny you say that, because we were just talking about that. Not yet, but we're in touch. I mean, everybody knows. Hatch Poultry knows who it is. Bubba knows he can get the eggs. It's all good to go. He just hasn't actually made the order yet. All right. Finn Drennan says, hey, is children's play sand safe for quail? I'm from Ireland, and I'm getting a small chicken coop without a run on it. Would that be okay for quail? Yeah, it's probably fine for quail. The thing you're going to have to worry about is just making sure it's secure, that that the quail aren't going to get out and get eaten by something. But yeah, child's play sand is fine. You can use that for your quail. I use the cheapest sand I can get, whatever, and it works just fine, no problems. All right. Kinjo says, thanks for taking the time to answer, Chris. I took notes. Awesome. You're absolutely welcome, by the way. Hey, Hatch Poultry is here. Didn't even realize it. Hey there. Good to see you. Thanks for joining the live broadcast with us. Mac Guyver says, did you try to hatch quail eggs from the grocery store just for fun? No, I have not tried to hatch quail eggs from the grocery store. I don't think any of the grocery stores around here even sell quail eggs. I think I've seen them one time at a kind of a farmer's market grocery store. But actually, I don't know. Other than that, I don't know where you would buy them at a grocery store around here. All right, where are we at here? Bunch of people saying hi to Hatch Poultry. Joe Shelburne says, I've been having lots of trouble with ear mites this year in my rabbits. It comes and goes in mine too. Have problems with them from time to time, and then sometimes it goes a long time without them. One of the things, let me grab another drink here. Soda. I know it's bad for me. You don't have to tell me. Where was I going? Okay, one of the things about ear mites, when you treat, ear mites are really easy to treat. Just use some food grade oil, cooking oil, mineral oil, whatever. As long as it's food grade, it works just fine. I tend to use olive oil nowadays because I just have it on hand. And just put a couple of drops in their ears, once a day for however long until the scabs are all gone. And then repeat every day or so every other day, I should say, every other day or so for, another week or week and a half, something like that. What may be happening is that you're just not getting them all, so you're getting a reoccurrence of those same mites. See, what happens is, you tend to treat for the ear mites, you kill all the mites that are in her ears, but they've laid eggs. So you stop treating thinking you've got it taken care of, those eggs hatch, and it just takes a little bit of time for those ear mites to start coming back. I mean, they never really got killed off completely. So you sometimes have to be diligent with that and just treat a little bit longer. Also, if you're keeping like a lot of straw or hay or those kinds of things in their hutch, that's a great place for ear mites to harbor. So you might try to clean all that stuff out and give it a couple of weeks. Once you've treated them, make sure that you give it a couple of weeks before you reintroduce any of those kinds of things just to make sure that you got rid of all the ear mites. But I mean, again, it's not really that big a deal. Ear mites aren't a problem. They're pretty easy to treat. It's just, I mean, it's a little bit of a pain to have to take the extra step of doing it. Most of the time, the rabbits don't like it, so it's a little tricky to get them to hold still and let you put oil in their ears. But other than that, it's not that big a deal. All right. Oh my goodness, excuse me. Oh, it got me yawning here. All right. Markolowski Medinama, it's hard for me to say too, says, thank you for all the information that you have on quails. I started with 20 last year, and I had very success with it. Thank you again. God bless you. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that, and congratulations on all your success. Good work. You've done well. All right. Cruel Intentions from Tennessee is here. It says, keep up the freight work. I think it means great work. It's just a typo. Lauren says, Kathy says, Lauren, that feisty rabbit, my skittish one got so loving now that she's a mama. She's great. I hope yours mellow out. Yeah, it's weird. A lot of times you'll see rabbits that are just crazy to handle all the time until they have babies, and then they're just mellow, easy to handle, don't mind it. And a lot of times it's the other way around. They just get crazy once they have babies. It's insane. All right. ES says, hey, Chris, what's the best aperture for wire flooring for adult jumbo Coturnix? The best aperture, huh? See, I got to think what that word. I mean, I think of that word as a photography word when you're talking about the aperture on the camera. So the aperture, do you mean the angle of the floor? I'm guessing. I know that word. I feel embarrassed now that I'm having confusion on it. I think you're talking about the angle of the floor. That you would angle it. I don't angle mine at all. They're pretty much level. I did build cages at one time. Tried them out that had an angled floor. It was, I don't know, probably a 15-degree angle, something like that. So the eggs would roll to the front of the cage. Even tried to kind of play with an egg catcher so they would roll out and I could get them that way. But I just really didn't like it. I just felt like the birds always seemed like they were walking an angle. I thought to me, it looked like it would be incredibly uncomfortable to live on all the time like that. So I just decided not to do that. The other thing I had problems with there too was like the feeder. Anything you put in the cage is going to end up right up against the front of the cage because the feeder would slide down the cage to the front. Not immediately, but as the birds are walking around and moving the floor a little bit as they walk around and stuff, it just inches towards the front and it ends up right at the front of the cage. Everything ends up right at the front of the cage. So I just didn't like it. It just didn't work out well for me. Hopefully that kind of answers it. I'm not sure if I got that wrong or not. Debbie says, rabbit poop doesn't need to break down. You can use it immediately. You're absolutely right. When we were talking about making compost out of it earlier and stuff, you're right. You don't need to compost rabbit manure. You can just throw it straight on your garden. All right, Kenneth says, when you drink quail eggs, Chris, does it help your health? I don't actually drink quail eggs. I mean, there's lots of scientific evidence. I mean, true medical evidence. This isn't like folklore and stuff. This is real medical scientific evidence that, consuming raw quail eggs, and there's different dosage amounts for different things, but it can help treat or cure tons of different things. And I probably should drink them. I mean, I've got these terrible problems with, I guess it's eczema. It's just dry skin in the wintertime where my hands dry out and they crack and they'll bleed if I don't keep up on it. Maybe raw quail eggs would help that, but I don't actually do that. I don't know. All right. Rachel is boss says, my first batch of quail are a week old, 34 of 50 hatched. That's not bad. That's pretty good. From my shire, do you have a preferred feeder and water for chicks? They're making a huge mess. Pine shavings all in the water constantly. Yep. Yeah, I've had those problems too. Now, what I use for a waterer is it may actually be called a quail chick water base. It's one of those that screws onto a mason jar, but it's got a really thin channel. It's not one of those that you typically see for chickens that have the great big wide channel. Let's see, I don't have one in here to show you. So they can't get inside of it. They can't fit inside that channel. I don't have to put any marbles in there or anything like that to keep them out of it. It does help a little bit with, all that kind of stuff, keeping the birds out of the water, because that's a big problem sometimes with baby quail. As far as feed, I usually just dump that on the cage floor, but I don't use pine shavings. I got to where I had the same problems with you. If you used any kind of litter, it just ended up in the water all the time. So I just went to using paper towels on the floor of the cage. That's it. Don't use newspaper, don't use something real slick, but paper towels work really, really well. And I just dump the food on the floor. I mean, no matter what I put it in, it always ends up on the cage floor anyway. So that's what I do, and it works out pretty well for me. I got to change paper towels out. Usually when they're first hatched, they can go, 3 or 4 days before I have to worry about changing them out. But then much after that, it's pretty much every day or every other day at the least that I got to change all those paper towels. So, probably costs a little bit with paper towels, but I don't find it to be that bad. I usually just double layer them on the bottom of the cage floor, and then I just, pick up the paper towel, throw it away, put another one's down. All right, Finn says, can quail handle a lot of rain? Because it rains a lot here in Ireland. It depends. I mean, yeah, they can handle a lot of rain. You don't want to put them in a situation where they just have to stand out in the rain all the time. You want to give them a way where they can get out of the rain, get in, under some shelter of some kind to get out of the wind, out of the rain, those kinds of things. But yeah, the rain doesn't seem to bother them too much. A lot of times my birds, when it's raining, they're just standing outside in the open area, and they get rained on a little bit. It doesn't seem to bother them at all. All right, Preacher Boy says hello to all. Hello to you. Debbie Finland says goat manure works immediately too. You're absolutely right, Debbie. Goat manure is another cold manure. It works really, really well, and you don't have to compost it first. All right, Marie says, what size of quail bands do you recommend? I got 7mm, but some are slipping off of them. Well, then I would recommend a smaller one. Honestly, I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't use any kind of bands on my quail, so I'm not sure the best size. I know that they do make those for pigeons, so I think that would be something similar to look at. Maybe the smaller size quail are slightly smaller than pigeons, so you might look at what's being used for pigeons, see if they have like a small one for pigeons. I can't really help you with that one, unfortunately. I'm sorry, I just don't use them, so I don't know the answer to that. All right, Amy the Little Farmer says, hi Chris, I have a quail mystery. Got them last August, and they have laid standard color eggs since October. Last week I got my first Celadon egg. None previously. Would a hen just not lay until now? No, that doesn't sound right at all. I mean, you may have, let's see, you got them last August, and they laid since October. It could be that you had a hen that was just holding back, hadn't started laying until just now. Celadon's a genetic trait, and every egg they lay is going to be a Celadon egg if they carry that trait. Now, I have gotten some eggs that are kind of a bluish color, but they're not Celadon eggs. So it may just be that. It may just be that you got an egg that was a little bit off-colored. It looks a little bluish or looks a little greenish or something like that, but it may not be a Celadon egg. Usually those are, completely green-blue all the way around. But again, if it is truly a Celadon egg, it's probably that the bird just didn't start laying until now for whatever reason. All right, Renato says, hi, is there a way to increase the size of a litter in rabbits, or it all boils down to genetics? Pretty much all boils down to genetics. What I do to make sure that I get, good fertilization is I try to let the male breed the female at least 3 times. Other than that, there's not much you can do. A lot of it just boils down to genetics. Some rabbits have bigger litters than others, and I don't think it makes a huge difference. I don't think there's really anything else you can do to really ensure that they're going to have a bigger litter. All right, Kathy says, and I turn the ground every 3 days or so to help things dry up. Where are we talking about? Okay, Kathy, I'm lost track. All right, Kathy, I'm sorry. I don't know what we're talking about by turning the ground every 3 days to help things dry up. I don't see the previous comment. I don't know what we were talking about. So I'm sorry. I can't respond to that one. Rachel is boss says, Hatch Poultry, I was surprised when I ordered 50 jumbo wild eggs that I couldn't fill both rows on each quail rack. Gladly, I only ordered 50 and not 100. Is that normal? Are you saying probably saying the eggs were too big to fit in the egg holder of the egg turners? So whenever you had like the quail rails in there, you could only fit 50. You couldn't fit one in each slot. The quail rails have two areas for eggs in each rail. So I think what you're saying is you can only fit one in one row. You couldn't do both rows. The eggs were too big. They wouldn't fit in there. Huh, interesting. I wouldn't say that's normal. I don't know that that's a bad thing necessarily, but no, I wouldn't say that's normal. Usually I can get them all in there. Every once in a while I'll have one too big. It doesn't quite fit just right, and the eggs are a little crowded in there, but I've never had an issue where I couldn't fit, I couldn't fill both rows with them. All right, Chris, how are we doing on time here? About 15 minutes left here. Chris says, my quail started laying on Thanksgiving, laid 14 eggs, and then stopped. What happened? Oh boy, I mean, who knows? Lots of things. It could be lack of light. That's generally the biggest reason why quail stop laying. A lot of times when they first hit maturity, they'll start laying. But if you're talking Thanksgiving, there's probably plenty of light. The days were still a little bit longer at that point, so you probably had plenty of light on them. And then after Thanksgiving, the days really start shortening off. Around December, the first week of December or so like that, the days really start getting a lot shorter. And that's probably what happened, is that they need about 14 hours a day of light to lay on a consistent basis. So unless you're putting on some kind of supplemental light that extends the day for them, they're not going to lay in the wintertime. It's normal. That's probably what happened. They just happened to hit maturity, have enough light at that point to where they went ahead and started producing some eggs, but then they stopped again for the season. That would be my guess. Tyler says, try that again. Tyler says, hey, Chris, I have a question about the weed barrier that you have on your garden. What brand is it? And has it held up pretty well? Thinking about trying a few rows this year to see how I like it. Yeah, it's held up really well. I don't know the brand, but it's in my Amazon shop. We can get this isn't just like thin weed fabric that you typically buy at like the big box stores. The real thin stuff. This stuff's a little bit sturdier, and it's held up really well. I've got the cover. Some of it I never took off in the summer. I took off the cover that was covering the actual rows that I plant in. I took that off so I could add some compost and things like that to the beds, and then I laid it back down. The only parts that I'm having any problems with would be the very end, and that was because I didn't have it stapled down real well, and the wind blew it up. So for a couple of days till I got out there to fix it, it was just whipping around in the wind, and it did start to fray a little bit at the very edge of it. But the rest of it's doing great. It's held up very, very well. Not really showing any signs of too much wear or anything like that. It's all doing great. All right, Hatch Poultry says hi to Rachel. Says our eggs are pretty big, so if you ordered from us, I think you did. Would have to check the system. It could be that our jumbos lay big eggs. Nice. Bigger eggs are always better. Well, within reason. You don't want double yolk eggs or any of those, but yes, bigger eggs are better for the most part. Boris says hello, Chris. Hello to you, Boris. All right, Rachel says, I was surprised, good surprise though, if I'd ordered 100, anything other than jumbo, should I be able to squeeze 100 in? It's a Hoverbaiter 1602 in. And Hatch Poultry says, yep, any of our other lines, such as our Rare Mix, or just any line that doesn't say jumbo, or isn't the Zero line, they should fit. Nice. Peanut Pepper says, hello from the wet, rainy, nasty, is that Brew Bridge, Louisiana? I guess that's probably French. I don't know any French names or French words, so I don't know how to pronounce that, but I think I got it right. Either way, thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate that. Amy the Little Farmer says, thank you for being such a great resource. Well, you're absolutely welcome. Thank you for the kind comments. Mark says, I'm back. My computer overheated and shut down. Then it wouldn't reconnect to the Wi-Fi in the hotel. Oh, no. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. That's frustrating. Kathy's saying injecting eggs sounds like those homunculus. I don't know what that is. So maybe. I don't know what that is, though. Hatch Poultry says, whoever asked the question about injecting eggs and what it is, it's a vaccination that is injected into the eggs, to the egg and bird on day 18. Only for chickens, though. Okay. Makes sense. All right, Brittany says, another Hatch question. Oh, boy, we got 10 minutes left, and I got a bunch of comments to try to get through here. I've been talking too much, apparently. Excuse me. Brittany Olson says, another Hatch question. Do you ever open unhatched eggs to see what happened? It seems gross, but I have followed all your directions to a T, and I had 11 hatch out of 108. I think the weather, and then it cuts off. It maybe continued later on. Think the weather. Okay. 11 hatch out of 108. Boy, I'm sorry to hear that. Again, I would say check the temperature of your incubator. Make sure that the thermometers that you're using to check it, make sure they're accurate first. Don't just trust them. You got to make sure they're accurate first. Check that. That's usually the biggest reason why you have a failed hatch is going to be temperature in the incubator itself. Yes, I have opened up unhatched eggs to see what happened to them, to see if they fully developed or didn't develop at all. It could be if you're using your own eggs and maybe you're not getting good fertility in your eggs. That could be something to kind of be concerned about. There's a number of different things there, but I would start with temperature of the incubator. If you haven't done that already, I would start there, check and verify that. Sorry to hear you're having bad hatch rates. Hopefully it is the weather. It clears up and you get better results going forward. Future Homesteader says, if you don't mind me asking, where company did you mention about ordering quail eggs? Oh, sounds like fake meat. I got a bug flying around in here. Weird in February. Says, sounds like fake meat in reference to the injecting eggs. You can order eggs from, there's a lot of different companies that order eggs. I have a link on any of my videos that I posted recently where you can get 20% off. I think it may actually say 15, but it's 20% off right now of any eggs you order from Hatch Poultry. If you order it through the link, just click the link, follow the link, put in a code, Slightly Rednecked, and you'll get 20% off your order. And Hatch Poultry is actually in the live broadcast tonight. So, if you have questions about eggs, Dawson will be happy to answer them for you. And again, great resource there. You can order your eggs there. Kansas City Quail Farms is another good resource. Their eggs are always top notch, always do a great job there too. Hatch Poultry's got great bloodlines, and you get 20% off if you use my link and my order, or my code. There we go. Good grief. Having a hard time getting all this out tonight. All right, James Burkett says, hi, Chris. I've got 42 eggs in the incubator and 20 more under 2 broody bantam hens. Spring is here in Northwest Florida. First chat, great info, your site. Thanks. Awesome. So 42 eggs in the incubator and 20 under a broody bantam. Under 2 broody bantams. There we go. 20 of them. I've heard of people using bantam hens to hatch out quail eggs before. Hopefully that goes really well. Good luck on the rest of your hatch too. I am jealous that you guys have a spring already. It's supposed to get down to 17 degrees tonight, so definitely not spring here. All right. Yes, says aperture, size. Okay, got it. Now I feel like an idiot. Sorry about that. The size of the gaps in the wire, but that's good to know also. Yeah, duh. That makes perfect sense. That's what aperture is on a camera. It's how big how wide the shutter is opening up. So yeah, size of the gaps in the wire. Duh. Yeah, I use 1/2-inch wire on my birds. I wouldn't go any smaller than that. Your droppings aren't going to fall through, and any bigger than that, it's a little bit hard on their feet. It's just too much of a big spacing in the wire for them to walk on comfortably. Hopefully that answers that. And I don't know if yes, I think you said you weren't from. I think you're from somewhere foreign to me anyway, foreign country. So you probably don't use the metric, or you probably don't use the imperial system. You probably use the metric system. But I don't know what a 1/2 inch is in metric. We're stupid Americans that use the imperial system that doesn't make any sense. So I'm sorry I can't answer that for you in metric. Oh, I can itch. What are we doing here? 5 minutes left. All right. Jesse says, do you think chicks get splayed legs by walking on the eggs in the incubator, or is it better to take them out quicker to avoid this? Not generally, no. Quail, typically they get splayed eggs from a couple different reasons. Either a vitamin deficiency, which is unlikely, or they can't get traction for some reason. The floor is too slippery for them. They just can't get traction, so they can't stand up. It usually is because the muscles in their legs are not being flexed or stretched properly when they first get out of the egg. It's like there's a certain amount of time where they have to get up and start moving around, or they're going to end up with like splayed legs, something like that. Generally speaking, I find that usually happens with the birds that are hatching really, really late, so they develop slowly to begin with. There's just something wrong with the developmental process for whatever reason. Again, that can go back to a temperature-related issue in your incubator. If your temperature is just running a little bit low, it causes your birds to not develop as fast as they should. to hatch out a little bit later, and then you can run into some of those more problems like splayed legs and those kinds of things. Getting them out earlier is fine. The one thing I would say is you don't really try to avoid opening your incubator if you've got birds that have pipped the shell but not completely hatched yet, and that's really hard to tell when that is. I usually give my birds about 48 hours before I open it up for the first time and take out all the birds that have hatched. All right, hopefully that answers that for you. All right. Bubba says, I drink raw quail eggs, and they do great for my diabetes and blood pressure. Good to know. I don't have either one of those problems, but I'm getting older, and who knows, maybe I'll end up with some of those problems. I may start incorporating that into my diet. All right, Kathy says, sorry I didn't make that clear. Poop debts bagged up for sale. Poop debts bagged up for sale. I have the issue with the urine saturation in the ground. Little poop is left on the ground. Oh, you're bagging up the rabbit poop for sale, and you're having issues with urine saturation on the ground. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know that you could throw down lime or something like that probably to help, soak that up. It wouldn't be bad for the ground. It wouldn't be bad if some of that gets in the rabbit manure either. Lime's fine for your garden. So, you could try that. Who knows? That might work. How are we doing here? A couple minutes. All right, Finn says, thanks for answering the question. You're so helpful and kind. You are such an inspiration to me, and you deserve everything good that comes your way. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you so much for the kind comments. I'm not really that special. Don't give me a big head or anything like that. Glad to help out, and thank you guys for coming into the live broadcast, asking questions, so we have something to talk about, because I don't plan anything out for these. I don't come into this broadcast thinking, okay, if nobody asks a question, this is what I'm going to talk about tonight. I just come in here and hopefully you guys run the broadcast for me, basically. Rachel says to Brittany, I just cut open the duds from my hatch. Oh, okay, the bad eggs, got it. Most were infertile. One stopped developing around day 13. 2 others looked completely developed but didn't hatch. The air cell took up half the egg. Interesting. Says not sure if that's normal. Half the egg's a little bit much for the air cell to take up. It may be, again, that you have run into issues with humidity. Maybe it was a little bit on the low side, but it doesn't sound like you only had one that way. It was an issue. I think who knows? Could be, I wouldn't worry about it with just one bird that way. All right, Jill says, if the Kickstarter doesn't go through, is there any way to order the light? Maybe. I'm talking to the manufacturer. There's an opportunity maybe where I can order smaller quantities. May be able to come up with the funds to do that, and if that's the case, then I'll have lights that I can be able to sell individually one at a time. It doesn't look like Kickstarter is going to make it, so that's going to be kind of the direction I'm looking at. Oh, Future Home Center wants to know what happened to the light. Well, it's going on Kickstarter right now, but it's not going very well. We've only got 24 people backing, so not very much. Apparently, it's just not as popular as I thought it was going to be, so doesn't look like we're going to meet the funding goal. All right. GM says, Hatch, quick question. What size egg turner rails will the Ciro fit in? Will they fit in the chicken rail? Are the eggs 3 times the size of button, standards, or jumbo? And Owen says, hi, how are you doing? That was a question for Hatch Poultry, which says they fit into pheasant egg trays. So if you're using a smaller incubator that doesn't have actual trays and just the rails, they should fit the chicken, larger quail racks. Interesting. They're 2 times the size of normal quail eggs, and they're 3 times the size of button eggs. Almost 3.5, really. Yeah. And Damien comes through and says half inches, 12.5 millimeters. Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know. I don't keep track of. I don't do well with metric. I mean, it makes sense to me. I get it, and it makes so much more sense than the imperial system. But I grew up with the imperial system, so that's what I know. Damien says, love your channel. I've learned heaps. Thanks from Australia. Well, thank you for watching from Australia. I appreciate that. And Bubba says, Hatch Poultry, I will be giving you a call in the next day or so. Good deal. We're going to get that worked out. I'm glad. Was worried that you weren't going to claim your prize there or something. But all right, well, we've come to the end of the comments section right at the top of the hour, so it's a good time for me to wrap this up. Go spend some time with the family. Actually, my wife's not even home from work yet. She'll be home any minute now. But anyway, it's a good time to get this wrapped up. Thank you guys for joining tonight. Thanks for spending some time with me. I always look forward to these Thursday evening broadcasts. So God bless each and every one of you. Hopefully we will see you again next week, and good night. We'll see you then. Take care.